Yes.
Cool. Right then. So welcome to Yorkshire Business Focus. I'm Ian Strachan, and today I'm sat with Lewis Smith from MultiWeb Marketing. Hi, Lewis. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Good, thank you for having me. I'm excited. Believe it or not, it's the first podcast I've ever done.
Absolutely brilliant. And I love the fact that it's the first podcast you've ever done, and it's your 10th anniversary right now of being in business.
It is, yeah.
What a way to celebrate.
Yeah, super excited about it. It's today's been the final day of sort of the celebrations we've just had behind me, which I was a little bit late. We've just had Dan Fell, who is the president of the Doncaster Chamber, come in and cut the cake for us, which was just sort of a great way to end what's been a couple of months of celebrations. And now comes the commercial side of it, all the press releases, marketing and whatnot. So.
A marketing agency, this must come as second nature to you. So let's continue that theme. Tell us a bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk about just it from a company perspective to start off with. So the company's MultiWeb Marketing. It's a holistic marketing agency. So started off with just the vision of supporting e-commerce businesses. 10 years down the line, we're sort of 24 strong with a good board of directors, a senior team, and a division in probably just about everything that you would need for a marketing agency. So you've got everything from sort of graphic design all the way through to content and platform management, social media, essentially, just all the posh words for it. What we do as an agency is we essentially are the alternative to taking your marketing in-house. We are a fraction of the cost. For you to set up a marketing team within a company is 6 figures, to work with us is not. So we like to give everybody a slice of the cake that they need.
Okay, brilliant. What inspired you? How did you get into this area?
For me, my career prior to this was recruitment, and prior to that was IT. So I started out all but 16, 17, and I was literally an appointment setter for a telecommunications company, and my job was to make appointments for the field sales executives to go out and try to sell people peripherals or unified communication. And I started out there, and I worked my way up all the way through to an area manager for Central UK and Ireland.
So it's a hell of a training ground in the recruitment world, being an appointment setter in the recruitment world. What lessons did you learn from that role that you brought forward?
Resilience was massive. So for me, I'm not shy to say it at all. I suffered tremendously when I was younger from ADHD and dyslexia, and them two mixed together. Coming out of school, starting school in the 90s and coming out in the noughties, was a recipe for disaster. Or so unsupported in your adult life, you were just sort of thrown to a side and hope you succeed, and if you didn't, you didn't. So for me, I was really, really lucky to fall upon some massively influential people in my life, and the first one that I ever fell on was a gentleman called Matthew Tier, who, I know. Go on,
and did you fall upon Matthew Tier, or did you force yourself upon him?
No, I literally fell upon him, and it was by chance. He just liked me. He just liked me. That's all it was. And he was open and honest. I lied to get a job because I didn't have the qualifications. I left school with absolutely no GCSEs whatsoever, and it wasn't a lack of trying. I did try. I just weren't smart. I wasn't an academic kid, and I fell across. I fell into somebody's path that just liked me. So he took me under his wing. We had a very open and honest conversation about my academics, intelligence levels, and actually,
how did and the intelligence levels? That's an interesting. So how did that conversation go exactly, Lewis?
It was a funny one actually, and it's something I keep to this day. I'd done something which I'm probably not going to say on the podcast because it could be offensive, but I essentially. I got some spellings wrong and it came out completely wrong when I sent a letter to a director, and he came back and called me somewhat of a remedial, and at that point I didn't know what a remedial was, so I thanked him. I said, thank you. And he said, you don't know what remedial is, do you, Lewis? I said, no, not at all. And he went on and told me. And I just simply, I made him smile, and I had an energy which couldn't be matched. And because of that, he invested heavily into me as a person, and to my education and my ability to be able to sell as well. So he gave me all an opportunity that I shouldn't have had, and that paved me to be as hungry as I was through my entire career. And that was before recruitment even started.
So we're hearing there, we're hearing ambition, and we're hearing resilience, and we're hearing hunger. So what is your I mean, hunger, resilience, I suppose the hunger feeds the resilience, and the ambition comes out of it also. What is resilience for you? What does that mean?
I think resilience is quite a subjective word, but for me, it is just not accepting what a stereotype would give you. You know, we are sort of programmed in this world to believe that, you know, we have got limits, and, you know, disabilities, whether they be physical, mental, or learning difficulties, are too much of a tag, in my opinion. So my resilience was around proving that I wasn't going to be part of the larger percentage that should job hop, be unfinancially stable, be unstable in relationships, and really be what the book says I should be. So my resilience was proving to myself that that's not the case, and that's where my resilience comes from, even to today.
And so how do you go about proving that's not the case? What is it you have to do to be able to move on at that pace?
First of all, I think you've got to accept, and not only have you got to accept, I think you've got to be proud of where you are. You physically cannot change what you've got, and to accept it as a disability, or to accept it as a learning difficulty, was something I was never willing to do. So what I accepted it as was a more of a superpower, a power in certain ways, where I was able to think. I was able to think, you know, better than other people. Practically, it was harder to get things done, but the way that my brain worked, I used to see it quicker than most other people's, and my ability to...
So thinking better than other people, is that seeing things more quickly, or seeing a broader picture, or, you know, kind of like colours brighter and noise is louder for you? What is it that's different?
It was more the solution aspect of things. In the corporate world, as you'll know, you know, most of the day-to-day is finding a solution to something which could or has gone wrong, or simply finding a solution to something that could be better. And my problem-solving ability was always great. I knew I needed to get myself in a position where people would hear my voice. And I knew that I could walk into most teams and I could take that team from underperforming to performing. And should I be given a platform to do it, I could take a company to do that. So I
love that regardless of a school education which basically failed you, you now move into a corporate field, and you know you can head up any team and turn them around.
Yeah, and I stand by that with it. I mean, some people could tell you no. You know, I'm sure there's people that have worked for me in the past that don't like me, but there's one thing that they've got in common, and they all live very good lives. And there's some people earning six figures, and is that because of me? No, but it's the influence that I've, you know, and the environment I've allowed them to be in. You know, and I'm happy with that. You know, I've had some, like I say, phenomenal leaders. I've worked for some great companies, and I would probably sit there and say, you know, I'm proud to say I left on great terms, and they were better for having me than they were before. So yeah, you know, it's you know, for me, it's an accolade that I like to you know, I like to talk about.
Absolutely brilliant. I love the development, because a lot of hard work and discipline goes into that.
Yeah, especially when you have you know, attention disorders, and you do have somewhat of difficulties. The effort that needs to go into it is twice as much as somebody that doesn't have them. You know, so a lot of people don't see it. It's sort of a duck on water. It looks calm on top, but the feet are paddling like mad underneath.
But in the modern world, there's drugs and all sorts that they'll offer to you straight away as soon as the diagnosis is there. So is that a solution that works for you?
No, it's not. I'm very, very strong-minded in saying the Ritalin that they give you is a sedation drug, and I can tell you that because I was on them, and I think they trialled me on a maximum dose in York, which was because I was affected by it, massively, and I was a naughty child at the back, a little bit dim, a little bit thick, and hopefully he just doesn't cause an annoyance today. And rather than working with me to find out how I want to learn and what I would respond to, it was a simple case of giving that magical tablet, which would be Ritalin. And all Ritalin does for anybody that has it as a child is just simply sedate you. And, due to sort of the chemistry and biology of your undeveloped brain, you don't fully know why you are the way you are. So, sort of from the age of 11 to 13 for me, I was heavily sedated on Ritalin, which just took the energy from me. It was, you've had a bad day at work, you get home, you're having to force a smile on to see your wife and kids. I felt like that most days as a 13-year-old, and I knew then that it wasn't for me. But you don't quite have that voice to be able to say that, and I definitely didn't have the vocabulary to explain that. So it was just met with resistance.
Yeah, how do you fare up to that resistance? What does resistance mean to Lewis?
Resistance means I don't want to do it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to feel that way. And as of such, any opportunity I could not to take them, I wouldn't. I didn't like them. And I'm no stranger to saying that. And by the way, I'm sure there'll be many people that will watch this where Ritalin have done them, a tremendous job. Where they've given them clarity. As an adult or even as a child, it's enabled them to think straight. It's taken the cloudiness away. But I'm an energetic person, and I like being energetic, and I like being me. And there were other ways to be able to harness the things that I needed while still maintaining my personality and the person I'm comfortable being.
How did you find those other ways, Lewis? How do you go about finding that?
Do you know what? I put myself in an environment where I had no choice. I put myself in an environment full of academics, university students, people that were large earners. And I was in a room and I didn't understand anything about economics, I didn't understand anything about business, I didn't understand anything about politics. I had nothing to offer. And it became abundantly clear that I needed to educate myself. So I listened. I listened silently. I watched. And I took influence from the people that I really, really looked up towards. And I remember, even today, I'll remember all the names to the day I die. And I still speak to them on a regular basis.
Wow.
Because I've had some really, really good mentors in the past, whether it be directors or even just team managers, people that have really stood out to me because they've understood me for who I am. So everybody's got a different way. For me, I understand what it is to lose my attention, and I understand how to bring it back in a room. I understand that I might not do any work for 4 days, and I understand I might do 5 days of work in 1 day.
Yeah.
About it, it's how I work. And I get it done, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually bringing it back under control, there's a discipline sits with that. Where do you get the disciplines from? Where do you learn that skill set? Because we say for most business owners, the art of procrastination is usually just a lack of discipline. The art of succeeding in business is about having discipline. Where have you learned those skills from?
I think you've got it. I think I've got it because I've done just about every job you could think of. I'm able to sit down with appointment setters, which we've got. I'm able to sit down with managers. I'm able to sit down with board directors. And I'm able to talk to people and understand why they feel the way they feel. And I think having a human element to business is so underrated. The boiler room of the 90s is dead. People don't like that. What people actually want is to be heard. They want their bosses to know what their family's names are. They want their bosses to know, what they do outside of work. And you should have a real interest in that. So, for me, that is what it is. It's not a case of can I go out and find it from a book. You've got to have some life experience, and you've got to take it on board. And when you're about to make a decision as a managing director, which could affect people, you've got to look back and think, well, have I been in that position? How would I feel? Would that motivate me? And if the answer to those questions are no, you're making the wrong decision.
Interesting. I love that.
It's that simple for me. So yeah. I can't say I've been on a podcast. I can't say I've listened to podcasts. I can't say I've, listened to Tony Robbins and he's influenced me and he's done X, Y, and Z, because I do listen to those types of people. But I think you've got to find your own way. It's easy to be influenced by somebody else's way of working, but that's where inconsistencies come in, because unless you fully believe what you're doing, you will not be consistent with it within your life.
I hate that word, that modern word used so much about being authentic, the word authenticity, but that genuinely is the authenticity, isn't it?
Of course it is. We're individual people for a reason. If we were all carbon copies of each other, what a boring world we'd live in. For God's sake, I wouldn't have another me in a room. I'd just be arguing with myself all day. But if you haven't got your authenticity, what have you got? You haven't got anything. So I'm a great believer in just finding your own way. Whatever that is, just find it and figure out what works for you. And that's what I did. And people ask me. I'm involved in a technology college where I sit on a board of advisors, and we discuss things such as curriculum. And I always put my hand up and say, if any children with ADHD want mentoring, I'm happy to do that. And I mentored a group of 4 students last year. Okay. And each one of them was so unique. But the one thing they all had in common was they didn't believe their ability to do things. There was a phenomenal goalkeeper that was playing at a really good junior level that didn't think he was good enough because he'd had some rejection from a club. There was somebody that was great at rugby, a girl, but she'd stopped playing because it doesn't fit a stereotype. There was another person who wanted to pursue, sort of a small, not career, but a hobby in martial arts, but again didn't fit the criteria. And then there was somebody else that was really good at explain to these people, just because somebody tells you, because you face rejection, or just because somebody tells you that's not what you're supposed to be good at doing, doesn't mean that you can't do it at all.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. There's a great line by Les Brown, isn't there, where he was in school, and he was saying, he was telling the teacher, I'm in the ineducable child. The teacher said, "Who told you that?" And he said, the head of year told me I'm ineducable. And the teacher said, "Never, ever, ever wear anybody else's label for you." And I love the power of that. The power of it. So if schooling didn't work for you, and now you're working on the board at a college to help them in their education, what do you bring through that's helping the next generation? How does that sit? Because obviously, you learn in school, you learn a whole bunch of things in school that perhaps they weren't on the curriculum. How does that reflect through in what you take back to the college now?
Do you know what? It's a really, really interesting one for me, because I'm somebody that can stand up in front of a room full of a few thousand people and it just does not faze me. But I have suffered from imposter syndrome being in that school. And it's one of the things, as an adult and as a professional, I've not faced, even, sort of in my own hobbies where I've, been up to good levels. I've not faced that, but I did suffer from imposter syndrome where I was thinking I shouldn't really have a voice here because I didn't feel like academics worked for me. So how can I advertise? How can I not advertise, but how can I, give advice on academics when they didn't work for me? And in actual fact, I don't really have any. I don't have those famous GCSEs. So I have struggled with that one. And I think for me is I try to talk to people and advise on curriculum based upon the knowledge that I had within recruitment and what people actually look for in that sector, and the knowledge that I've got as a business principal, to be able to say what is healthy coming out of school. So one of the major things that we concentrate on are things such as languages learned in terms of coding languages, in projects committed to. So are you wasting your time teaching somebody something that's just not usable? Because it's going to make them not as attractive as the other 100 applicants that are going to be in there. So at the minute, it's all very factual. It's still something I'm growing with. I'm pushing into my 2nd year now, and I am becoming more confident. I'm becoming more vocal with it. There's a lot of intellects at that school. There's some university professors. There's people that have come through the ranks, and I think for me, it's something that I've been so unfamiliar with. I fell into the role. You know, they literally asked me to do it. So that one, I'm not perfect on at the minute. I'm working on that one. It's a work in progress.
So there's something a little bit terrifying about Lewis having a work in progress. It's just a little bit. If I kind of get the. It's not even like a terrier with a bone. It's like a Rottweiler with a bone. If you get something between your teeth, I'm kind of guessing you're gonna smash that one way or another.
Yeah, I will do. But you know, you've got to be. I think when you've got. I don't like adjusting myself to the audience that I'm with. I don't like it. But in some cases, you've got to cater to the people that you're around, and you've got to cater to the environments that you're in. And the educational sector was something I simply closed the door on. It failed me that much. I just shut the door on it. I felt when I left, it was a sense of relief because I thought, what a waste of time that was. I'd have rather been working for a few years because I gained more for the next 4 years than I did from the entirety of my education.
Absolutely.
And that's just the reality of the real life, you know, a real life world that we're in. So to revisit it back as an adult, as a business principal with somebody with weight and somebody where I'm almost being looked at as an industry expert, which I'm not, by the way, but that's what they're looking at me as. It's daunting, and I think that is where the imposter syndrome comes from. You know, but it will pass. I know it will. It has to. I'll make sure it does.
It's another superpower. Frequently, it's just the element of Kaizen. It's just us looking at our own journey and going, actually, I could do that better. I could learn that better.
Yeah.
It's that process. As you immersed yourself in the first place with people who you felt better educated than you, and you absorbed what they're doing, you'll do the same again, I guess.
That's exactly what my plan is. I think the biggest thing for me is, so in business, which, you know, obviously you know a lot about, when you have an idea and you roll with things, especially with a board of directors, it's a case of batting it round, voting on it, you know, creating damage reports, physically looking at things and saying, okay, where can this go right? How can we make it right? But what could go wrong? What are the risks? In education, it's completely different because you cannot risk you know, children's education. You can't waste a year of their time, especially coming out of COVID when a lot of them are behind their academics where they should be. So there's a different level of pressure in there. You know in a business that if you get something wrong, it's just about holding your hands up.
Go back and do it again. Yeah,
it is. It's about getting your hands up as quick as possible and being reactive. In education, it's not quite that. So one of the things I'm enjoying at the minute is I'm looking at the way that other people present their ideas and how the consideration that goes into them. And I'm looking at their points and I'm understanding them and seeing which ones fit for me. And there's a lot that's coming out of it. You know, I invited the entire technology board to our offices a couple of weeks ago, and we had some food and we sat in this boardroom here and we sort of went through all the minutes and everything that we was going to go through. And I think that one for me was probably the best one I've been involved in, purely because it was technology based, you know, and I was in a comfort zone. So yeah, there's a lot to.
I love it. So in terms of being in the business then, so how do you use the superpowers you've got? How does that show up, and how do the people around you fit in with that dynamic?
Yeah, so for me, I'm quite a forward thinker. So the CEO of this business, Paul Smith, was a ex-FTSE 250 director, where his last job working for somebody was a 1.2 billion turnover company, where he was the marketing and new development director, I believe, something like that. And this was in the 90s. So when Paul created this company, he created it with his complete vision in mind, and you know he sort of needed you know some real good foot soldiers on the ground to make his vision happen. The latter stage of it, when I came into the business, and the substantial growth we've had since then, is because I'm very different to that. I do not have FTSE experience, and I'm never going to get FTSE experience because I want to remain here and I want to grow this. Hopefully, could be a FTSE company one day. You never know. So I need, I'm very much about the team that's in and around me. I like people to have the autonomy to do what they need to do. I think the word that a lot of people use for it, but don't get batted around a lot, is an intrapreneur. So obviously an entrepreneur is somebody that wants to go and do it for themselves. But what about the people that are very good at doing it for somebody else? Me, I'm very good at doing it for somebody else. I'm the type of person that will think like a CEO, whether I am one or not. So trying to create that and trying to create an environment where people are happy, but they have the autonomy to do what they want to do is how I'm trying to build it. So I've got.
How do you create an environment where people have autonomy, but still pull in the same direction as the company wishes them to go?
They've got to believe, they've got to be a part of it. So creating structures around creating structures around board meetings, having everybody having a say, people understanding. So one of the biggest things that I've done, and I learned this because I'm not going to mention the name of them, but I worked for a company once where it was just silent. It was so silent, and I was middle management. So the people that worked for me wanted to hear from the business principals, but never did.
Okay,
and it was so damaging because the business principals wouldn't be able to just sort of sit there and say, hey, this is done for the year, this is where we want to go, these are the reasons why to it, and this is X, Y, and Z. So one of the first things I did when I came to sort of multi-web marketing, and I came in as a commercial director, is I simply just pulled cohesion together. It's across 2 floors of the business, and there was an upstairs and downstairs divide.
Really?
There was boys versus. And I just simply collapsed it. I collapsed it completely, and I just said that won't happen. So much so that I gave my office up, and I sit downstairs on the corner here, and there is no directors in an office anymore. We're all have an open plan, and we all move around fluently, and the boys and girls are spread between different floors and different divisions, and real good cohesion. Because we've done that, everybody believes in where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't believe in it, it's not show them the door. It's actually try to understand why they've derailed a little bit and try to understand why they no longer believe in it, because they may have a point. We may have fallen off. We might have lost our credibility because I've only got 2 eyes, and I can become, sometimes I am guilty of having a one-track mind. I know where I want to be. I will get there. Do I want to leave a trail of disaster behind me? No. So I rely upon the people that I've given autonomy, respect. They've said to me, I want to succeed. I want to be a director. I want to be a head of department. So right, okay, go and get it then. Go and get it. Show me what you can do. Show me what you can do. Come to me if you see it going wrong. So that's very much the environment we're in now. We've got people pulling and pushing their own departments even now as we go on. We've got interviews happening upstairs, interviews happening downstairs. We've got meetings up, so we've got client meetings going in other meeting rooms. So the autonomy was completely to pass responsibility to everybody that works here for their work and their individual commitments, and reward them for it. Brilliant. So that comes with an increase of salary, which puts more cost on the business, but
it also comes with a level of investment of their soul to drive in that direction.
Oh yeah, we've got saying, Paul, the CEO, we often say there are, sort of 70% of this business that if you would cut them, they'd bleed a little bit of blue. And I do strongly believe that, the commitment that some of these guys show here is phenomenal, and it's an environment that I have been used to in the past because I've seen some real committed teams because they've wanted to be there and they believe in it. But this one is a special team. It is. I've got to admit that one. What they've achieved for a little business that was based in Doncaster and to be recognised on European levels, as one of the UK's top agencies at a creative level, which is up there. It shouldn't really be, if I'm being honest, but it is, and we're enjoying that ride.
And so how do you celebrate those successes? Obviously, you had a good champagne weekend the other weekend celebrating the 10 years and the cake today, but there's little celebrations on the way, all the way through it. So what have you celebrated in the last 3 months and how have you celebrated it? What's gone well for you?
So the last 3 months have been, but we have just received our first European award. And that's where we have been recognised as a European industry leader for our web design and UX, which just stands for user experience. Now, there are, to sort of break the myths down in terms of what awards are, there's two different types of awards. There's pay to play. Hey, here's £400. I'm the UK's #1. Thank you very much. I'll have that. And then there's the portfolio-led ones. So your portfolio-led ones are people like the Vega Awards, like the Muse Awards, real top standard of awards. And that's where you submit a project to go in front of a panel. And that project has to meet certain criteria. And you don't know who wins. It's a physical panel that will look at those projects and they will base it upon not the amount of tables you can sell, not who's going to pay the most for a trophy, but who's physically got the best project for that individual category. We have been recognised for our first time on a European level, which for us is it just shouldn't be possible. So we've had some real good accolades in the UK of being sort of the best UK's e-commerce web designers or great UX designers and things like that, but we hadn't been celebrated at a European level, and we have just done that. And even better than that, it was for a pro bono project which we did for something that sits very close to our hearts.
Oh, nice.
And we it's not been released yet, so I've got to be a bit.
No, you've got to be circumspect on what it is, but we look forward to hearing that news. At this stage in the interview, I usually ask, what would you go back, if you were the 10-year-old self, what would you go back and tell yourself now? I think it's a fascinating question with the knowledge and the experience that you've got and the changes you've made.
Yeah, so I would just go back, and I think it's a great question to ask, but I would just go back and just give myself some confidence. One of the things that I suppose doesn't get spoke about a lot, because it is a bit of a taboo one, because in the UK we focus so much on fixing a problem. We don't actually identify how the problem makes somebody feel. Yeah, we just don't. We don't. Let's fix that. Well, has anybody stopped to ask how it's made somebody feel, and is there any lasting effects of that? As a 10-year-old, with undeveloped frontal lobes, going through puberty, sitting in a school, sort of just experiencing, what life is going to be like now until I'm sort of 16, 17. It was petrifying. It was absolutely petrifying, because you had people around. I didn't understand sensory overloads. You're just trying to be normal, trying to fit a mold. And one of the things I fell into when I was younger, again, I'm happy to talk about it, is I became, as a young boy, a compulsive liar. And I did that because I didn't believe I had anything interesting to talk about. So I didn't trust my experience or my ability to speak about anything. So I had a lot of worms, ahs, I don't know, a lot of silences. I wasn't a shy kid. I just didn't know what to speak about. I didn't know how to express myself. So if I could go back and speak to myself as a 10-year-old, I'd just put an arm around myself and say, look, he's going to be all right. Just say what you think. I wasted so much time trying to be who people wanted me to be. And I wish I'd have just been authentic from day one, because I do enjoy who I am. And I've got a good set of friends, a good set of family. I've got, 2 kids at home and a partner that I believe loves me very much. Depends what I've done. And I'm not a bad person. So, my advice goes out to anybody that's suffering from like that at the minute. Believe in yourself. You can change it.
And I'm going to spin that question on its head and go, so what's the 85-year-old version of you say to you right now?
Well
sat in the corner of the room in a rocking chair, looking with all the experience of 85 years of being Lewis Smith. What? Well done's a really great one. Yeah, absolutely. Where to take that?
Well, I hope he says to me, we've made it to 85, which is a great weight off my shoulders. But no, do you know what? I don't know what the next 20 or 30 years are going to bring. But when I do get to 85, I would like to believe that what I have done is I've left a legacy. I don't base my life upon, the money that I want to make that comes with it. It's a great bonus. But I like to make a difference in people's lives, because people made a difference in mine. And if I can pass that down to a few more people, if I can make a few more people rich, if I can make a few more people's dreams come true, if I can make people successful from areas where succession would be a thing, I'll be proud, and I'll look back at 85 and hopefully the next generation is running this company, because it is a legacy-based business. We've got no intention of selling it. We want to pass this on to the people out here, his children, my children, to come in. It's a share system. So I'd love to look back at it. I'd love us to be across the UK, a few hundred staff, and think, we started that, we grew that, we made that possible. And that to me is all I want to look back. So I don't have a message for myself, from myself, because it's all dependent on what we do now.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I love that. I love the clarity of vision there as well. That's absolutely super. Absolutely super. That's brilliant. I love everything in there. It's just all pulls together as I don't know, coming out of school in a turbulent time, but then actually getting a hold of life and making it work for you. And it sounds like everybody in the organisation around you is benefiting from that as well.
Yeah, I benefit from them. A lovely. I haven't mentioned his name. He deserves a mention. A phenomenal mentor for me. Elevated me to a director level. A gentleman called Jeff Shepherd. He runs and owns a company called iSource. Also runs the Yorkshire Mafia Group. A phenomenal gentleman. He once told me. And I remember, I remember when he said it to me. He said, "We are better for having you at our company, but you have also been better for being here." And I really agree with that. So it's a two-way stream. This company is good, is lucky to have me, but I'm so lucky to have the company as well. I am, because we both do an equal amount for each other.
That's absolutely perfect. I love the sound of that. Lewis, thank you so much for your honesty and the discussion there and exploring those areas of your development and the development of the business. I really appreciate that. It's a great session of Yorkshire Business Focus.
Lovely job. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely brilliant. And thank you all for coming to Yorkshire Business Focus. I'll be back on shortly. Bye for now.